Welcome to Talking WoW, the podcast where we talk about World of Warcraft, believe it or not. My name is Tom, and today we're going to be, I guess, doing a bit of a continuation because a few episodes ago we had a guest on, Dusty, to talk about what we wanted announced at BlizzCon, and we thought it might be fun to hook Dusty back onto the show and maybe go over our predictions that we made and, well, blow our own trumpets and say how we called it all and we predicted the future. Welcome back to the show, Dusty.
Guys, I am super excited to be talking WoW with you guys today. Man, it's a good day. It's been a good couple of weeks, and I've been looking forward to this all week.
And, of course, Marty is here as well.
Oh, hello.
So, Dusty, BlizzCon 2023. There was lots of expectations, lots of hype for the first BlizzCon in many years, and since Shadowlands got announced, believe it or not. And we had you on the show and we made some predictions, but I suppose before we get into that, what was your big takeaway from BlizzCon that you were like, that has got me excited? And you're allowed to say warbands, but you can also pick something else if you want to.
Yeah, I think warbands is a given, so I'm not going to go there, especially if you listen to our previous episode. I'm just going to say just the overall theme of how serious Blizzard seems to be taking World of Warcraft. I believe that they realize that they're kind of at a make or break kind of point in the kind of journey of where WoW is. Shadowlands was very highly criticized going into Dragonflight, which has been an uptick, but it seems like the numbers are not going up or the retention is not what they want it to be. And I believe by bringing back Chris Metzen, announcing 3 expansions in one go, which I believe there's some pros and cons of doing that. The pros of that for me is just having a consistent story that goes multiple expansions. And Final Fantasy does that, and Final Fantasy 14. And seeing WoW do that, and to know that we're going to have a consistent journey and we're going to conclude some of these kind of cliffhangers that have been out there is just exciting to me. And I feel like that this is the first time that I feel that the Blizzard team is okay with modernizing WoW. They're getting away from some of their old kind of mantras of, no, we're never going to do account wide. No, we're never going to do this or that. And they're doing it. And they're taking things, I think they're taking a page out of Path of Exile's book in that they're adding things with each season or update in WoW's case, and they're going to keep it. So like with dragon riding, becoming dynamic flight, they knew dragon riding was a hit. They're going to keep it for the remainder of WoW's lifespan, right? So with all of these things, I guess just the overarching theme of Blizzard seems to be taking WoW serious. And I don't know about you guys, but the internet is buzzing about WoW right now. I mean, you got normal content creators who aren't even WoW content creators that are streaming hardcore WoW. They're talking about the new expansion. They're saying BlizzCon was a major hit. And I just feel like as a Warcraft fan, this is a really good time because I never thought it would be this again. Back in the olden days, I'm not saying it's as good as back when Wrath was here, but I feel like there's some buzz in the air about Warcraft again, and I'm just excited.
I think it's also really interesting, bringing back Chris Metzen. When he left, the last thing he did was the expansion called Legion that ended with a huge sword penetrating Azeroth, and now, what sword? And now he's back and he's continuing that storyline with what sword again? So I just found that kind of interesting and funny to that, that's probably a huge coincidence, but yeah, it's definitely there. It's on the radar.
He left that sword in and he's like, you guys didn't sort that out yet?
You guys didn't do anything?
I guess I better come back and, help
you guys
pull that out.
Sort that out?
Oh, geez.
Can I say something really quick with the Marty's accent? You guys had an episode about 2 or 3 episodes ago where he said the word dig, but I thought it was a different word. And I was like, wait a minute. And then Tom, like 2 seconds later, said the same thing. And I was like, he's reading my mind. So I thought that was wonderful.
We've got to be so careful on here what we're saying. We don't want to get cancelled just yet.
Yep.
We've got so much to say. We've got so many expansions ahead, and at
least 3.
At least three. And I think you're right, Dusty. Like, they're also, I guess, showing that story is maybe finally important, because when you look back in the past, we basically just have these stories that have been contained to an expansion. And let's be honest, as well as like Warcraft do narrative content, sometimes it always feels like when you get to that end of the expansion, it very rarely feels satisfying with regards to the story. But we still come back for the next expansion because we think, okay, but it's going to resolve that thing. And actually, our attention usually gets shifted like somewhere totally different, to a new threat, or just something completely different. And then we forget about what we just did almost, and it doesn't seem important. And the fact that they are taking a leaf here, a very big leaf out of Final Fantasy XIV's book, which, they're hailed for their narrative experience. And finally, we will get, hopefully, we have to see how it plays out, but on paper, it looks great. The fact that we've got 3 expansions coming and we've got all this story and we're going to get things finally resolved. And maybe then, without looking too far into the future, maybe that gives them the blank slate almost to then take us in a new path, a new direction with the story, because there's still so many stories to be told here.
I really feel like a lot of the time when a new expansion comes around, it feels like it's been like a thing in Blizzard where they're like, let's change up as much as possible. Let's change up how classes play. Let's change up all these things. And you go from one storyline to another storyline. It feels like, each expansion is like a new game pretty much every time. And it's something that's been a little bit, for me at least, frustrating. That why do we need to change up something that is extremely fun to play right now? Like here, the class that I'm playing is playing really, really good in this expansion, and the next expansion they've changed everything up and it's so different. And I do see that there is that tendency over the last couple of years that they're moving towards, hey, this actually works, so why, if it ain't broken, why fix it? So I'm really happy as well to see that they're finally, going in this direction. And I want to say that it's not just Final Fantasy who does that. There's another great undervalued MMO out there.
Don't say it.
Star Wars: The Old Republic. That also does that. That
Hashtag
they don't change things.
Sponsored.
They don't change things too much, and it's a continuous storyline, and it's great.
And that game also doesn't get updated, though, really. It does. They do. They have some patches, but and they have some expansions, too. But I enjoy SWTOR. I've played through a couple of the class stories for sure. But
it deserves so much more, though.
I agree. But I would say that it does sound like they're doing exactly that, right, Tom? It sounds like they're cleaning up all the loose ends. So they're going to kind of tie up these loose ends in these next 3 expansions. And when the Last Titan, concludes, we can do kind of what Final Fantasy is doing next year. And with Dawn Trail, with their new expansion, we're
going to head to the beach. We're going to
head to the beach.
Take our shirts off, and
we get shirtless orcs. It's wonderful. But I do think they're going to do that, and I'm with you guys 100%. I'm excited about that.
So, I guess moving on into things we talked about, what we wanted at BlizzCon 2023 a few episodes back, and I guess we'll address the elephant in the room that was player housing. Still haven't got player housing.
I think this was the first step, though. I know you had some comments on y'all's video, and we did our podcast about
this was the foundation.
That would have been better. I should have. But I read a comment on the video for our last episode, and somebody said, or Twitter or something, and somebody said, do people still want player housing? And it made me realize that maybe I am an outlier in that case. I don't think that I am, but I do believe that going forward with the war bands, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and with some things that WoW are putting into place, I would not be surprised if, by midnight or the Last Titan or whatever, that we get something that looks like player housing. I really believe that.
By midnight, that's only a couple of hours away.
That's only a few hours. That's awesome. I love that name for an expansion, by the way. Oh, that collector's edition is going to look so good.
And the fact that it's going to be 12.0 midnight, just...
Oh, I didn't even... I did not think about that. That is amazing. Tom, that's great.
I can't take credit for that, but I will. Okay. You just totally know someone was like, oh, well, we're gonna announce 3 expansions at BlizzCon. Right. The War Within, the Last Titan, but what are we gonna call the one in the middle? And someone's just like, come on, guys, can you wrap this up? It's almost 12. It's almost midnight. We got to get home. It's like midnight. Great.
Midnight. That's it.
Just sorted.
That's awesome.
I'm going to edit out this joke.
Edit out your own ones as well. There'll be no show left. But yeah, player housing still a big question mark. But I guess that does segue us into something we did predict, or we did want. But we weren't the only people in the Warcraft wanting this. But it was account-wide reputation, and we got a bit more than account-wide reputation, didn't we? We got pretty much the promise of account-wide everything with warbands, and the fact that it's going to be more focused on our accounts now instead of our characters. And I guess, Dusty, go on, tell us what you think about this, because I know you're probably dying to.
This changes the way not only that I play, but it changes everything. Like there have been so many times where I've thought about logging on to run something, but I thought twice about it because I was like, well, I have my male character leveled up to where I can run this dungeon or this world zone. But just like yesterday in Emerald Dream, I looted a treasure and I got a staff on my toon that cannot equip a staff. And going forward with the new system, I'll be able just to unlock that transmog right then and there. And I know to some people listening to this, they're like, oh, this is so stupid. Why don't you talk about the raids or the dungeons? Or I'm sure you like delves too. And by the way, yes, I do. But the thing is that changes everything. Think about how many people have run that stupid raid and got the Tusk of Manaroth that dropped on a toon that cannot equip it. Now that's gone. That's not going to be a pain point anymore. You're going to be able to unlock everything with just that one toon. And having account-wide renown, which I do believe they'll go back and they'll backdate it. They didn't say anything about it, but I do believe over time there's some technical things going on there. But I do believe we'll see an announcement going into a patch that says, hey, all reputations back to Legion, are now going to be account-wide. And then I think they'll kind of roll that out. That's my opinion. But warbands is just exactly what I was just talking about. It's a symbol of WoW going, hey, we're okay. We're going to modernize our game. We don't have to make things so hard for people. But being able to unlock transmog, when I heard that, it's kind of it sucks for me because now I'm like, well, until this is released, do I want to run that old stuff? Do I want to do this? And just yesterday, having that staff drop, I was like, dadgummit, Blizzard, I wish it was working now. But as you can tell, I'm a big fan of warbands. I think it's just nothing but positive for the game.
Was that staff BOE? It wasn't, right?
So no, I couldn't mail it. I could not mail it.
But that was another thing where I was like, because when I'm leveling through that zone, or not leveling, I've been playing through that zone as well, and I've gotten a few BOE items. So I'm like, these would be perfect for my alts. Sure, I can mail them, but the only issue was that the character I got it was on a different server. So it was like, on a different server, I have no other alts. So I was just like, how amazing would it be if I could just put this in my shared stash with all my characters and just pick it up? And even if I had it on the same servers, sometimes it's just like, then you mail a lot of stuff to that character and you pick what you can use, and then you mail that stuff forward to another character, and then just
right.
Like, it's so annoying to handle stuff like that. So
actually, to be specific about it, since we're in the game, I can look at it. It was a dagger cosmetic that dropped on my Demon Hunter, and obviously Demon Hunters cannot learn, and it was soulbound for some reason, so I could not mail it. I believe the cosmetics, some of them seem to be soulbound, some of them seem to not be. But like if we had that new system, I could just right click on it and boom, I'd hear that all the things little ding, jingle, and it would unlock, and I could use that dagger on my rogue if I ever played one. But it's one of the things to where that would have been eliminated. So
Dusty, I'm going to go one further and say, I hope we don't even have to click on them. You loot it and it gets added. Let's save our mouses, from being clicked to death. And actually, something I was talking with Marty with yesterday is, even though warbands is not live yet, the idea of warbands, very much going to be happening, is quite good for your mindset when you're playing as well. It almost encourages you now to say, well, this stuff, play more, but also it's all going to get connected, eventually. So, if you do want to go play that upper class now, go for it. Because, if you want to go earn reputation on that character for this patch and you get it maxed out, like eventually that's going to be amalgamated and it's all going to get listed under one. So while warbands is not here yet, the idea of warbands is, and you can almost start breathing and relaxing and maybe doing things you want to do that you didn't want to, because sometimes people get weird guilty things where they don't want to play an ult because, well, that's not gonna count towards their main. But if we're moving towards everything being under like one umbrella, then people are gonna be people maybe are gonna be more encouraged to flex their wings even now.
If this mindset was in place during Shadowlands, and I know people hate talking about Shadowlands, but like think about how much more fun Covenants would have been. You would still have to grind the anima, right? But the thing is if the account-wide thing was in place, I mean, hypothetically speaking, they're not really reps. There were different reputations in Shadowlands, but I could see a world where Blizzard's like, oh no, that's part of warbands. If you get level 5 on this Covenant, say, whichever the Necrolords, whatever, then you get level 5 on all of them, and then you just got to grind the anima. I mean, you guys have no idea how many transmogs I'd love to go back and unlock from Shadowlands that look super cool, but the thought of having to grind up Venthyr to level, it just is miserable. That sounds miserable. But if they had an account-wide thing where it's like, hey, do it once, that would be awesome.
It was miserable. Let me just put it that way. It's not. It is miserable.
You've done it. You've done it.
Not all of them, but my plan was to get around to get everything. But
so wait, let me ask you this, Marty. Have you? Because this is something I've thought about doing. I've got all the questing gear for each Covenant, but are you saying that you grinded out all 4 Covenants on all 4 armor types?
I never.
Don't say it, Marty.
I didn't complete it. That's what I'm saying. It because it was so miserable. I'm very close,
I got
though.
You.
I think.
I got you.
It's like
I got worried there for a second.
I did. I was like, holy cow!
It's a matter.
I knew Anduin lost the light, but so did Marty after doing that.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of probably 3 sets that I don't have.
I'm telling you, if the account wide thing, you would play just as much, if not more, and you would get so much joy out of. I mean, some of those Covenant sets, say what you want about Shadowlands, they look great.
So good. But that's sort of like where I ended, where I'm like, all right, let's sit down and look at these and which ones look so good that I just need them in my life and which one doesn't. And that's why I ended with just being like, I'm only going after the ones that I really, really, really want. But it was the expansion, though, that because of that particular reason, that is why I started my spreadsheet that has become kind of famous on our stream a few streams ago, where I mapped out, all my characters and who should do what and who was working on what.
So wait a minute, you're talking spreadsheet to me now. Oh man, here we go. This is getting. You're gonna have to link me that spreadsheet.
I need to rein this in. This episode is slipping away from me.
I have a spreadsheet as well. This is amazing. And
you're talking about the 2 S's, Shadowlands and spreadsheets. I'm just like, nope. If Marty brought up SWOTOR, that's the 3 S's. I'm just like, I've got to hit the big red button here.
I'm sorry, Tom. Bring it back in.
Well, just to end on that, warbands making Shadowlands better. The other thing we talked about in our prediction episode was the thing known as Classic Plus, that people were hoping for an extension on maybe a new stories in Classic WoW, or just maybe new ways to play Classic WoW. And, well, Dusty, you got your wish there, didn't you?
So I will say
of Discovery.
I will say this: I was not excited about Seasons of Discovery until I listened to the episode that you guys released recently, where you talked about just how hyped both of you are. The barrier to entry with Classic is just time. If I'm going to spend time in Warcraft, it's going to be in retail, doing things that I want to do and unlock and making, which is another reason why Warbands is so great, because every time I'm playing a tune, I feel like I'm getting something for my time. So with the Season of Discovery capping out at level, what is it, 20 or 25?
25, yeah.
And maybe even eventually, once that cap is raised, have that kind of speed up. That piqued my interest. And I heard someone who's big into the Classic scene, a YouTube video I was listening to while I was working out yesterday. They were saying they feel like Season of Discovery is just the start. They feel like this is going to become a seasonal kind of living game that possibly could lead to Classic Plus. But you guys did a great job with that episode, and I will definitely be trying to possibly dipping my toes into Season of Discovery just to check out the runes and seeing what a tanking warlock feels like, those kind of things.
So since we actually recorded that episode, one of the big things I think I was excited about was the fact that it was going to be like no PTR or no beta testing.
Yeah.
And I think since then there actually has been data mining with regards to that, and a lot of stuff has been leaked. Is that right, Marty?
I mean, I didn't read the article.
You never read the articles, you just read the headline, right?
I just read the headline. No, I do. So I do also read the article sometimes, but I just saw the headline. I was like, hey, wait a minute. Didn't they say that this stuff wouldn't go on the PTR? And now there's a lot of stuff being leaked on the PTR. And I was so confused about it because they clearly said, no PTR, and here we are.
So I did read a Twitter thread from one of the developers, and I think essentially the like framework and groundwork for Seasons of Discovery, they still have to like push a build of classic WoW to like somewhere, and then that can get data mined. But it's like, I think a lot of that is potentially also things you just already know about that build, as far as I'm aware. But yeah, there's always going to be people like data mining things in Warcraft and finding out the spoiler things. And I think if you're somebody, like us, that you're looking in all the places where Warcraft news is, you're probably going to get something spoiled for you. You're going to find something out. If you're probably just somebody that's maybe not a content creator or, isn't spending too much time on social media, and good job on that, by the way, then you're probably not going to even notice these things. And the majority of players are still going to be going into this without, knowing things and, the season living up to its name of Discovery.
Yeah, it seems to me like looking on Wowhead, they had data mined some of the runes and the effects of those runes. Unfortunately, it's going to happen because of exactly what you said, Tom. But
are you saying they ruined it?
They ruined it. Yes, I am saying that. You're going to have to timestamp this thing, Marty, to cut these out. But I will say this, like, it's all about your consumption. I'm still playing through the Final Fantasy 14 story. I'm a long ways from being done up to where they've ended it now. And I just don't consume that content. I don't watch Final Fantasy content. I don't consume any of it because I don't want to be spoiled. So, I know Twitter and things can be kind of iffy, but just, be careful. If you don't want to be spoiled, don't. I mean,
also the good thing about Final Fantasy 14 is the story is very confusing, so it's
very convoluted,
hard to understand anyway. So
yeah,
even if I had played, ahead of you, Dusty, and I was trying to spoil the story for you, I probably wouldn't actually understand what I'm saying.
You've played through it though, haven't you, Tom? Or played through it to a point?
Not all of it.
Okay.
Right, bring us back, Marty. Bring us back on topic here.
Star Wars: The Old Republic, good game. Check it out.
But all I'm saying about data mining and stuff is it's going to happen. They're going to do it. So.
Yeah. Do you have any other things from BlizzCon, Dusty, that you want to touch on? Because we made like 3 predictions in that episode, and I think 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I'm pretty happy with that, and maybe we do get the player housing eventually. Who knows? Because again, with Warbands, we saw that delightful new character screen that we're getting with some of our characters sitting around a campfire, and maybe we're going to see new character screens that we can unlock in game, or maybe they're going to start selling those again. I shouldn't say things like that, giving Blizzard too many good ideas there, but imagine just being able to customize your character screen as well.
Yeah, I think anything that Blizzard can monetize, don't give them ideas. Please don't give them ideas. I've always thought in Hearthstone they were going to start monetizing the mana crystals and do like different colors of mana crystals, and I was like, oh, I better not say that. It'll give them an idea.
And now you did.
One of the last things about BlizzCon that I took away was just the speed in which they plan on giving us content. 10.2 is out now. I wouldn't be surprised if by early next week 10.2.5 is on the PTR, or 10.2.1, I'm sorry. But every 8 weeks, I mean, this cadence, if they keep this up, the retention, I don't think is going to be a problem. So, what are your guys' thoughts on just they laid out a roadmap for Dragonflight the end of that year, and they stuck to it. I believe the roadmap was a good idea. And this cadence at which they're releasing content, to me, I love it. I think it's great.
I would say, like, with regards to content coming out, like general patches, it's been really good. It feels like you're not really waiting too much time for something new to come out. And when you play more than just retail, like if you're dipping your toe into classic or, hardcore or Cataclysm Classic, then you you really have like so much going on that it actually feels a bit overwhelming. But if we just stick to retail, like it has felt like there's always been something just ahead, haven't had to wait too long. And I felt relatively engaged with everything that's going on. And I suppose just like a sub question to your point, Dusty, and your question is, are you worried about when they say things like, we're going to bring out faster expansions? Because to me, I start thinking of like, Destiny 2's version of expansions, I'm doing quotation marks, or Elder Scrolls Online's version of expansions, which they're okay in their own right, but they're probably not what we would call conventional expansions. Like we're used to expansions being, a lot of content there, a lot of, just a nice good old dump on the table and just like, whoa, there's a lot to go through here. Whereas probably modern expansions in modern like games have been more like, I would say that's a large content update. I don't think you can call that an expansion there.
Yeah, it does concern me, knowing that we already have 3 expansions announced. What concerns me is that, let's say they release The War Within, and what I would rather see them do is to have a full 2-year cycle for an expansion, but within that expansion, keep doing the 8-week release cycle within that expansion, because you're not buying anything, right? What I'm worried about is they're like, oh, they want content faster? Well, we'll do War Within summer 2024, and then 18 months later or 15, whatever months later, we'll do Midnight. And now we're spending, $60 for the expansion, or if you want early access, which we haven't talked about, $90 for an expansion. They're going to keep doing early access, so that'd be another $90 in 18 months. So that does concern me that we're not going to get the full-fledged feature. And what would really tick me off, my favorite things about expansions are the new zones. I love exploring the new zones, the new areas. What scares me is, what if by the time we get to the Midnight or the Last Titan, they say, well, this is an expansion, but all you're really getting is features. And I could see them say, you're not really going to level in this expansion. There's not 5 more levels. There's not 5 zones. There's one big zone. And what they're really doing is they're taking what would have been like an 11.2 patch and putting it in an expansion. So yeah, there are some concerns there for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously don't know what that looks like on paper, and that's all we have right now. The prospect of 3 expansions is so exciting, to theory, like what that is going to be, like what features we're going to get. We're already seeing, like with the War Within, we're getting a lot of things that we actually wanted as players, which that's quite strange, isn't it? Actually getting what we want, because normally an expansion comes along and it's like, hey, island expeditions or something, like, well, what's that? But okay, sounds cool. Maybe it's not. But we're actually getting, with warbands, this is what the player base have wanted. Like, you ask anyone in the player base, everyone is talking about warbands. Like, Christmas has finally arrived in Azeroth, and we are getting our number one thing on the list. And really, it's not content to say. It's some back end stuff that makes the game more
better,
accessible.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it's not having something super flashy that we actually want. It's like, it's some, and I'm not saying warbands is a simple thing. Like, sounds like an absolute technological nightmare having to go back and rewrite spaghetti code. Like, that's going to be awful probably for somebody. But sometimes it's like, it does feel like maybe for once going into an expansion and a set of expansions that the player base is being listened to, and they are actually hearing us. Because one of the classic lines for developers to say is, we hear you, and it's like, you're just saying that, but you know what, this time I believe you, because of the way the War Within is going, and hopefully this is carried on in those other expansions as well, and the expansions we're going to get over the next 30 years apparently. What about that, Dusty? Do you think you'll still be alive when that expansion comes out in 30 years' time?
I am 36, so I would be 66
Yes,
at the time, doing a little bit of rough math there. I hope so. I hope I'm still alive, and I hope I still have the enthusiasm and passion that I have for the game now. If you would ask me in 05, 06, when I was playing, original World of Warcraft, if I would still be talking and enjoying it at 36, I would say probably not, but here I am. So yeah, I hope so. And
we're going to be sitting around here 30 years time. Mark it in your calendar. 30-year reunion. We're going to talk about this episode in 30 years time.
So let me ask you this though.
Are.
It's kind of an ingenious marketing strategy. Like not only the announcing of 3 expansions, but saying like there's 30 more years of WoW. Like that's genius, because now these people who are putting in all these hours collecting and improving their account and doing all these things, they feel like their time is worth it. So it's genius. Like you've got these people hook, line, and sinker as long as they're alive,
There's going to be a whole thing, and this could be a totally different episode, by the way, of people leaving World of Warcraft accounts in their wills because, this has been 60 years or 50 years of their life's work. It's like, please, son, carry on my legacy.
Yeah, I need to make sure that I have a conversation with Macy, my oldest daughter, and tell her, hey, listen, I'm going to have all these awesome transmogs. They're going to be a part of my war band. You have to understand, daughter, that these were a lot of effort and time. My buddy Marty and I grinded every covenant for you to have these transmogs.
I'm just picturing the Lion King right now, and Dusty, just putting an arm around the shoulder saying, one day, this will all be yours.
That's right.
That's what we had for you this time on Talking WoW. Obviously, a lot of processing from BlizzCon still happening here. But do you have any thoughts or opinions on anything we have spoke about here today? You can let us know in the places that you do that. But that has been it. We are done. I've been Tom. That's been Dusty. That's Marty. And we've been Talking WoW.
Thanks for tuning in, champion! Did you enjoy this episode of Talking WoW? If so, why not drop a review on your podcast catcher of choice, or leave us a comment? You can find Talking WoW on Twitter or YouTube over at Talking WoW. Hope to see you again soon!